And so it says you're live. And that must mean it's Thursday. Guys, apologies. I have shot my voice. I sound like a kid going through puberty. And it's doing that. And I'm so sorry. If that gets too obnoxious, we'll just call it a night. I probably should have just bailed on in the beginning, but here we are. So, Delaware, am I audible tonight? Yes. He says live. I take that to mean there's a lack of a message that says I can't hear you. So be it. Hey, well, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to ADRAMADA. It is Thursday evening where I am right now in the Houston, Texas area. It is 7 p.m. Central Time, give or take, somewhere in the middle of summer. What is today? Today is the last day of August, huh? Goodness gracious, does that make the year fly by? We're done with 8 months out of however many months are in a year. Well, it is ADRAMADA. Another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything Digital Alchemy. And we are here to talk tech. And I'm not going to do all that long-winded stuff I ought to, because the show tonight is, the project tonight is interesting. And all we're going to do is talk about it. We're going to lay groundwork. I have nothing to show you. I have a little bit to show you, but we're not going to do anything hands-on today. I'm not going to demonstrate anything. So let's see what's going on in notes here. Everybody's just getting fired up. Our project last week was kind of a fun one, to my mind anyways. We used a utility called Make Password, no R, Make Password, which is a Linux utility that creates strong passwords. And we have all kinds of neat controls over it, minimums and maximums and encrypted versions and salted versions and hashes and all kinds of other goodies. And while the utility is run under a Linux environment, you can use this to create passwords that you would use in any environment. It's a lot of fun with that. And so, with our usual fanfare, we will say, Eep, Op, Ork, Ah, welcome to the show. And so I have this eternal note in my outline that says, hey, don't forget to mention this. And I mention it way too frequently, so I haven't mentioned it for the last couple of weeks, and I'm not going to again. But it has reminded me that something good has happened. We have progress in the ADRAMADA world. I started researching a couple of weeks ago on what it takes to get swag printed. We've designed logos and neat stuff that's going to get printed on shirts and whatever else we decide down the road. And so I started. There is sites out there dedicated to teaching you and recommending places that do this. POD, print on demand, is the industry speak for the kind of stuff we want to do. And there's a couple of approaches to that. One, we can contact a printer and say, here's our stuff, print me up a minimum batch or more and send it to me, and then I will ship it out as people want them. Or you can go, we've talked about this before, full service that says, here's my stuff, and I will even take the orders, or they can too. I've seen places do that. And then when they get an order, they print it, they pack it, they ship it, they get their cut. I beg your pardon. Let's try another Ricola. This is going to be, I'm going to talk with a Ricola in my mouth. I apologize. And then I'm going through all this stuff and I'm learning all kinds of things. And I had an epiphany. Good friend of my son, they were swimmers together. And they were students at Alabama together. They would often commute for vacations and all that stuff back and forth. Her father, is he's in the printing swag biz. And so I kicked off a message to my kids. Said, "What do you think? Should I contact him? Should I do it through the daughter? She's in marketing now, or whatever." And he gave me such a teenage answer. "I don't know. Guess you got to do what you think is right," or something to that effect. So okay, I sat on that for a couple of days, and then I had gone into the office this past Tuesday, which is a major adventure for me. If traffic goes well, it's an hour and 15 minutes. And it did go well this week, I'm happy to say. But so I got an hour and 15 minutes to kill when I'm done at the office on the way home. And I thought, well, let's just give this guy a call. So I called him up and started talking. And man, I was so impressed. I don't think he's the cheapest out there, but he's freaking cheap. And he totally convinced me. I'm not getting the friend of a friend discount or anything like that. There are zillions of ways to print swag, and let's just talk clothing in particular. And there are two usual ways. One is to silk screen. This one's not silk screened. And the other is this method. If you could feel this is shiny plastic that appears to be attached to the fabric with glue or, heat sensitive adhesive, something like that. And those are the usual two ways to do shirt printing. But the third one is his company has one of only 5 fabric dye inkjet printers. And so, like, if you're going to do silk screening, you get 4 colors, or you get 5 colors, or 6 colors, maybe 8 colors. Here, you've printed with an inkjet printer. You get 256 million colors to pick from. And it's blindingly fast, and so I'm so convinced. So I got one more logo that I got to clean up and make sure they're in the right files for him. But he'll get all that next week. We'll do the back and forth and get everything nipped and tucked and fine-tuned and tweaked. And then we will place that first order, and we will have swag. And about that time, got a nice 3-day weekend coming up. I'll work on the website, build a store into it, and we'll sell some. But you mods for here and for ADRAMADA for the Discord server, go and check out the notice that I put on there. Special case just for y'all. So I'm excited. I am so excited. I didn't do a word cloud this week because what we're talking about is interesting, but it's deep. All right, well, let's dive into here. So I was in attendance at an AMA a week or so ago that the Rocky Linux people hold every week. I don't make every week, but more often than not. And I had a question for, you guys have seen me interview Greg Kurtzer, the CEO, and he was talking about a topic, and I said, well, why don't you create a step-by-step, well, here, let's feed this up a little bit. So there has been a big bust up in the Red Hat world, in the Red Hat Linux world. And the folks at Red Hat are no longer making available source files to anybody but their actual customers who get support and pay for support. And there's a new license they're not allowed to share or distribute it. And well, there are companies that count on these things, and it sounds like they're leeching off, and okay, you could argue maybe they are, maybe they aren't, but there are differences, there are betterments, and the most important thing is this is Linux. It's supposed to be FOSS, free and open source, and these guys, by creating this license, have found a loophole and a way around it, but that's wrecking a lot of upstream and downstream development. So that's why Rocky came into existence, or I guess before the bust up. And that's why CentOS existed, and that's why Alma exists, and that's why Fedora exists. And all of those folks are being badly impacted. So CIQ and Google and SUSE, S-U-S-E, Linux got together to create the Open Enterprise Linux Association, OELA, or Open ELA. They're working on the best way to do this. And this is a way to make sure that organizations that build Red Hat compatible Linuxes will have access to the appropriate source codes. And so I proposed to him that wouldn't it be good if instead of this very narrow band of organizations that are creating these Red Hat clones, that regular people could do this, or, Linux weenies and maybe even, real regular people. We're regular people. And he pondered that for a moment and said, yes. And what that means is, or what I have in my mind about that is a total step-by-step how to make your own version of Red Hat or Rocky or whatever. And he said, such a thing already exists, but it's not Red Hat focused. It's generic Linux focused. It was started by a gentleman named Gerard Beekmans from, Andre's not here, but from the Netherlands. I think he's from near where Andre is from. He's Eindhoven. He's since moved up to Canada, over to Canada. But he wrote a book somewhere, I think around 06, something like that, called How to Roll Your Own. It's not called that. It's called Linux from Scratch. But it is a step-by-step tutorial how to roll your own Linux distro, where to get the source code and everything. And so my idea pitched to OpenELA was basically to expand this to include enterprise versions of the source files. And that's definitely a road that we're going to explore. But in the meantime, I started digging around in this Linux from Scratch world and said, you know what? Let's learn about Linux. Let's learn its internals. Let's learn its guts. Because it's really easy. We all do this. Almost everybody here watching has probably done this at least once. We download a version of Linux, Ubuntu, or Mint, or Arch, or Raspberry Pi OS, or whatever makes you happy, and we put it on boot media, and we boot it up and install it, and cool, we're running Linux. That's great. Nothing wrong with that at all. But for some people, they want a deeper understanding. I want to know what this source code or this source package is, and how it integrates, and how the operating system is made. And that's what Linux from Scratch does. So let me switch pages here. Now so that's the setup for this. So here's the challenge. I think it's too big of a project to do on ADRAMADA. This thing could take weeks to months, especially if we're going to do it a half an hour at a time once a week, maybe a lot longer. So what I'm thinking about doing is my own step-by-step version of it. I'm just going to sit here and I'll learn today's lessons and I'll practice them and I'll do them. And then I'll record it as if I were doing a live show or no, whatever. It's going to be recorded. Here's the 10 steps that we're going to go through in this episode. And I'll walk it through and I'll demonstrate it and I'll do lessons learned and things like that. And so I think it's going to be a side project beside ADRAMADA. It'll be on the YouTube channel and it will be in the recorded videos instead of the live videos. And it'll be in a playlist and things like that. So anybody can follow along, and I will probably make a great deal more progress doing that than I would if we did this on ADRAMADA. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. And that way we can keep the show going, of course, with a variety of technologies. Nobody wants to see Dave yammer about Linux for 3 months. Okay, well, let's see who's here, and then we'll do news and all that good stuff. I made 2 changes to the setup tonight, hoping against hope that we don't lose connection. There you go, Linux from Scratch. Yes, linuxfromscratch.org. Hey, Scott. So I made 2 changes, and one of them is to reduce the stream rate, hoping that it was an overwhelming thing, and also not starting OBS until a couple minutes before showtime. But as usual, if I gag or whatever, communicate it on the chat, or Scott or somebody can send me a back channel message, and I will simply reset OBS and we'll try something else, right? So Tullowit gets here only half an hour before showtime. Good for you, my friend. I hear you, but low volume. I didn't put the mic very close to me. Tullowit, been almost a week since yes, we all read Cyrillic. Good, looks good, sounds good. Thank you, sir. Jason Helms is amongst the living. Welcome, Jason. Ooh. Scott's here. Scott Jernigan, the man, the myth, Scarhart. Inkjet printer for shirts. Yeah, I know. I hate to see that ink bill. And I'll share with you the actual hard numbers on the back channel sometime. It's not scary. Reading here. Patricia Grace. Yeah, I do have a little deep voice again. I just been coughing and hacking. I got a little bit of a summer cold. Patricia Grace, you are here, and the storm is as close to you as it's going to get. So I gather you are not badly impacted. And look, Scott is just like reading my mind. You're way ahead of me here. OpenELA.org. OpenELA. And it's an amazing group. It's got politico-industrial overtones to it. On its face, it is altruistic. And so we'll see what it does and where it does. I should mention this now because I've got the mind of a gnat, especially today with this cold flu thing. I had 2 fascinating experiences today. One was a conversation with a person, Scott, the person was Tim, who was talking about, we were both, sharing life experiences and finding commonalities. We're new associates at the office and getting to know each other. And he was telling me about a conversation that he had with another person not long ago who is a hiring manager for one of the really, really big companies that you'd all know. And this person hires into the software development side of that organization. And they were lamenting how awful, as far as qualifications go, of applicants that she's encountering here. They can't code to the level that this recruiting person expects. And okay, so I'm sure there's a fascinating conversation directly with the individual. And that was as far as this conversation went, except for this. I watched the Rocky AMA again today. It's the CIQ AMA. And they didn't have the top brass talking today. They brought in a couple of solutions architects and a couple developers and some marketing people. And this was a true AMA. They're like me. They usually have a focused topic, but they just brought in a whole bunch of different folks from the organization and took questions from the audience. Some people, okay. The questions posed were questions that I would pose if I were in a spoof symposium. What's your favorite ice cream kind of questions? And so I did ask a legitimate question that I'm going to present to you in the next show, which is, what are the day-to-day experiences or responsibilities and tasks of a solutions architect. That was a great couple of answers that I got from two of their essays, and it's interesting, it's fascinating, it's career worthy, and it's so much more and so much less than I thought. So maybe you may think the same thing. Anyways, there's also developers in there, and there's a couple of developers who have been in that AMA for the last few weeks. I don't know if they're representative of all of the coders in the organization, but I certainly get the feeling that they are. And they've been doing it for a decade or 2 decades or 3 decades. But these folks are the folks that this recruiting person needs to talk to. They are so sharp. They code in so many different languages and formats, and they're so versatile. So it's out there, but maybe it's just what's coming out of the educational channels right now, the self-learning channels. Learn to code C and become an expert in 5 weeks on Udemy, or their fully degreed programs in Comp Sci. Comp Sci is used to be a science, and now it's a coding world. But I just thought that the two kind of polar opposite experiences that I have were interesting. All right, back to who's here. Reading messages. Scott staying on top of it all. As they said in the MTV days, too much is never enough. It's always been one of my favorite mantras. If more is better, too much is just right. Thank you, comment. Jason, living LOL, feel like walking zombies. Yeah, you walked your way over to a nice Comic-Con, though. Some really cool pictures. Mint chocolate chip was the first ice cream question. There was a whole bunch of foodie questions. Like, is a hot dog a sandwich? But the first ice cream question was, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream and why isn't it mint chip? I haven't had ice cream. I have keto ice cream, which basically is frozen cream with a little keto sugar in it or something, or keto chocolate. But once I go off keto and I go back, I do have a favorite, and it is Baskin-Robbins Jamocha Almond Fudge. Man, I love me that stuff. Ooh. It was a horror convention. Okay. Yeah, and you had some really interesting folks. Got some really good pictures of that. Folks, if you're watching on the archives, go to the ADRAMADA Discord server. Let me post the link to that. It's not on this page. It's on this page. I don't know where it is. Discord, D-I-S-C. There we go, the ADRAMADA Discord. And check out Jason's pictures. I don't think you posted that on mine, but you will. I feel it coming. Let's go to this page. And here is the link to the ADRAMADA Discord server. I'm with you, Scott. A hot dog is not a sandwich. I think in order to be a sandwich, a pita is not a sandwich. The pieces have to be disconnected in my mind. So heroes are not sandwiches. Okay. Let's run down that road all day. So we got the show's winding up. It's in the last minute or two, and the primary host and moderator says, I feel like there's so much ground that we didn't touch with AMA questions like this. But, I guess we'll do it another time or whatever. And so I just couldn't resist. I had to throw out the holy war. Pineapple on pizza. And way more fans than not. And there is a marvelous lady there. Her name is Rose. Co-host and marketer and salesperson and a million other hats that she wears over there. She was talking about some time that she lived in Australia, and beg your pardon, pineapple on pizza, totally a thing, with also ranch dressing. And it was one of those things where, don't knock it till you try it. It sounds horrible. And then the whole thing went off the rails with who invented pine. Was it the Hawaiians? Was it the Canadians? Was it Californians? And the consensus was, as everybody starts digging into Google and typing while they're talking, I beg your pardon, Canadians. It was pineapple and Canadian bacon, according to that particular group. I certainly did post the Discord. Oh, yeah, please. Post those in any appropriate channel. And you're a mod, so if you want to make a different channel for them, knock yourself out. All right, what else is going on here in Uncle Notes? Okay, so tech news of the week. This is not to bash politics. I have no problem bashing politics, but this is political / techno news. Foolish man. Okay, so you got to have a graphic to go with this. The current administration of the United States, the Biden administration's Department of Energy, thinks that your ceiling fan isn't energy efficient enough and has proposed new efficiency standards for household ceiling fans as well as industrial ceiling fans. And so, fortunately, all of the other big energy-oriented problems in the world have been solved, and so we can go after ceiling fans now and natural gas-powered stoves and things like that. Yay. This is the same organization that runs the Rural Electrification Board, which was an agency of the U.S. government founded in 1936 to provide federal loans for the installation of electrical distribution systems to serve isolated rural areas in the U.S. So they're envisioning that average household savings on a fan that meets their new efficiency standards will be a maximum of $39 a year. The cost of these fans, when you consider the lifetime of those fans, so far outstrips that in the hundreds of dollars per year, $700 per year. But what I did get out of it, so there's my political side of it. Go away. Work on big things that matter and will have a real energy impact on the world. But okay. What I got out of that is there are 4 classifications of ceiling fans: residential, small business, and small industry. And there were different rules for each of them. There were VSDs, very small diameter ceiling fans, 52-inch diameter, something like that. Then there's HSBDCs or HSBDs and HSSDs. These are high-speed belt-driven ceiling fans. And I won't give you these acronyms. High airflow, large diameter ceiling fans. Low airflow, large diameter ceiling fans. And this one's my favorite one. This rates its own term. It rates its own acronym. And it is the VCMH, very close mount hugger ceiling fans, or very close mount, and hugger is a secondary term for it. And that just means it doesn't hang on a low-hanging rod. It's very close to the actual ceiling itself. There's a small gap in there. So that's my first tech news of the week. The Biden administration is coming after your ceiling fans, and you will pay lots more for new ceiling fans when you go to purchase them new than you will save, or than you will save energy for your nation. All right, let's see who my political opposites have jumped onto that. I think I know the answer to that. Okay, we no longer talk politics. Yeah, I know. It's a divisive war, the whole pineapple pizza thing. So it's an enjoyable one. Nobody gets hurt. For whatever reason, they call pineapple and Canadian bacon a Hawaiian pizza. We don't do Canadian bacon other than on pizza here. We love pork, though. Yeah, that's pork and Spam. Products that claim to be invented down there or seem to be invented down there. It was Tullowit who taught me that King's Hawaiian buns are... Sorry, interruption here. Still have the flaring picture. Yeah, I know, the flaring picture's still up. I haven't changed it back yet. Okay, we'll make the flare go away. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah, so it was Tullowit who taught me that King's Hawaiian buns are not Hawaiian. They're from L.A. And years ago, I learned that the, everybody picks on the name here, the poo-poo platter. And I gather poo-poo is a name for an appetizer kind of thing or something like that in Hawaii. But it, too, was invented in California by a guy who visited Hawaii and decided to create his own dish and market it. And after what happened on Temple of Doom with the ceiling fan. Ceiling fan. Oh, that's right. There was the guy who wound up at the end of the string. I like the vertical fan scene with the bald guy boxing. I don't like it, but it's most impactful for me. How's that? All right, next item in the news. Get your tissues out, kids. Well, I don't know what I just hit there. Okay, Brave browser, image slide viewer. All right, let's move on to the flare. There was no ceiling fan. The whole thing should have been flare. Can I go backward? Yeah. All right, so this comes with a bit of a story. Stop it. What are you doing? Buzz, buzz, grind, grind. There we go. Okay, ceiling flare. Ah! What are you doing? When I was a small child. So, it's in... I see what you're doing there. Hang on. Settings changed. Something changed here. It went into... Okay, I'm in manual. Use hotkeys. All right, let's see if it'll stay there. We'll know in 8 seconds. All right, anyways, when I was a child, somewhere under 10 years old or so, no, I guess further back than that, because I was old enough to be a pallbearer at a funeral for people with whom this story is associated. Anyways, sometime in my youth, my uncle, one of my many uncles in the central Ohio area, he was a boiler maker for an oil refinery company. He ran all kinds of tanks that make heat and hold liquids. And that's unrelated connection, but I made some notes here. It's interesting that I wound up moving from that area here to an area of Texas that is festooned, we know Dave loves to use that word, with refineries. Now, under certain circumstances, under certain conditions, the refining process releases byproduct for which there is no market. There's no practical way to capture and use those byproducts. And so, they incinerate them. And we're looking here at a flare. This is for when the methane production and other volatile gases gets too high of a pressure and they can't do anything with it. They can't route it someplace, so they burn it off. Okay. Well, and you've seen these before, surely. Well, when my grandmother, my uncle's mother, was in hospital for her final days, she was in a room that looked out on one of these flare chimneys where my uncle worked. And at her request, and sometimes on his own, he would fire up the flare. And she loved it. If she would call and ask it, turn on the flare, and he would. Or if he wanted to send her a message that says, I'm thinking about you, he would fire up the flare, and maybe some doc would tell her and look out the window, or maybe not, I don't know. But That was like among her last requests. And thinking about it now, I cut a few onions when I was writing this. I'm doing it again now, right? Well, not my point. It was just flares have come up in my tech research this week. So since those days, I am well into my sixth decade here. So we're talking about 4 or 5 decades ago. Nothing has changed. Very little has changed. All of this product, this excess, this byproduct goes to waste. And is that not stunning to you to see all of this energy being just burned into the atmosphere? And I'm not a big environmentalist, you guys know that, but even as a small child, long before this experience that I just wrote about occurred, I wondered. I remember asking my parents, why don't they use that to boil water or do whatever you do with fire? And they didn't have good answers because they weren't in that kind of world. But it bothers me, right? All right. There is an article in this month's MIT review about somebody and a startup that says, we don't have a solution for this, but we do have a solution for a related problem. So right now, there are billions of devices that generate heat that goes unused that doesn't have to. It is either piped into ponds and cooled down and heat up the ponds or the ocean, or released into the air as, if you choose to believe it, man-made global warming. I'm not a climate denier. There is global warming. I am, however, a doubter that it can be blamed on man-made. Another topic, another day. Anyways. So I claim some degree of proactivity in this realm. Texas is notable for some power failures, certainly in recent years. Winter, summer, and fall being the big times. My office, looking around here, is just packed with computers making heat. And in winter, when it's cold out, we don't jack the heat up in the house. We come and work in the office, and they close the door, and there's plenty of heat in here, and I don't have to heat my house. Well, wouldn't that be cool if we could take advantage of that on an industrial scale? And the answer to that is, it's starting. So we've got this company out there, this startup company. Where'd we go here? I got their name somewhere in my notes, and I'm kind of skipping my notes here. There we go, HEATA, H-E-A-T-A. It is a European company, and what they do is they take the waste heat from cloud servers, they tap it with heat sinks, and direct it with heat pipe to water heaters. Okay, let's backtrack just for a second or so here. On the East Coast, hot water radiators are a common source of household heat. And of course, hot water tanks for, for hot water. That's also very, very common in Europe. Now, how do they heat the water in these things? Boilers. I lived in a house in New Jersey not too awful many years ago where the basement had this oil-fired water heater, and you would fill the tank with water, and you would fill the lower reservoir with oil and hit the startup, and you had this big oil fire running this boiler. And that's all. And then they run it through pipes in the house, and they run it through steel radiators, and it generates heat and steam and all kinds of other goodies. Well, so since this is big, it's still very popular and common in Europe, and they use all kinds of fuels now. They use oil, they use gas, natural gas, and there are places, gasp, that use coal. So we get this English startup called HEATA that says we're going to tap cloud servers, get that heat out of them, and pump them into boilers. Now, here's the really wacky twist. That's a really great idea, but it's got a problem, right? It means we got to have a bunch of reservoirs there at the data center and heat all that water up. Now I got hot water. Now how do I get it to the places that need it? This is so cool. They are placing the cloud servers in residents' homes. Connect them with your regular Wi-Fi connection. And these things are heat makers. They're monsters. So let's go here and slide some slides. Oh, this one. This is some of the equipment involved, and it's kind of hard to see, I know that, but I got a server here. It's got a bunch of CPUs in it. They're each cranking heat. We have a heat sink with heat pipes up on top, and we direct that all to a controller, which in turn provides heat or directs the heat flow, the heated airflow, into a boiler. That gets cool. So one of these servers in your home, they're saying generates about 4.8 kilowatts per day. You provide the electricity to run that, but that is 80% less than the energy that you would use to provide normal boiler heat for hot water and home heating. So it's a very net positive thing. They have about 80 units installed and another 30 due by the end of October. And what are they claiming here? The claim for each server prevents 1 ton of carbon dioxide equivalent per year from being emitted, say, instead of using traditional fossil fuels and other, fossil fuels, it's all fossil fuels to fire up their boilers. About, is it annual savings here? Yeah, 250 pounds is about $315 per year on hot water heating costs. That's net. So it's a very impressive thing. I got another slide here that turns out has a transparent background. So I just found that out tonight when I'm doing this. But here's the heat sink. So these things mount on all the heat generating devices inside the server. So it's CPUs and other processes generating heat. They carry that heat through these little units called heat pipes. They get aggregated into larger heat pipes, and those go to your hot water heater. It's a really interesting thing. Check it out. I spent a lot of time on it here, you can see, but I'm really impressed with it. It's HEATA, H-E-A-T-A is the startup. A lot of fun stuff with them. There are no new ideas in the world. I was driving down the road on a long, lonely drive from Austin last weekend back to Houston, and the mind wanders. And I started thinking about cron jobs, right? We know what cron jobs are. That's a Linux system that has a timer in there, and you can trigger the running of programs and processes based on all kinds of time-oriented parameters. Check every second and run it on this many seconds, or run it these days of the week at this time, or this many times a year, or whatever. There's all kinds of neat things. But as I was cruising along, I thought, well, wait a minute. Let's say that I want to start a process when the sun goes down, wherever I happen to be. And I want to stop the process when the sun comes up. Does cron handle that? And so foolishly, but it was Sunday afternoon, there wasn't much traffic out there, I'm surfing the net and cruising down empty highways to find that out. And the answer is no, cron can't do that. However, there is an add-on program for cron. It's called HelioCron, and it's a command line app that works with cron to trigger tasks relative to sunrise, sunset, dawn, etc. So I thought that was just fascinating. No slide for it. That, my friends, is all of the tech news that I bothered to gather this week. So what do we got here? This is let me check messages, get caught up, and then we'll come back and talk about this thing. Scott, this is for you. I was going to send you a conversation starter about this, but I decided to hold on until today. So that's cool. After the Temple of Doom, impactful. The t-shirt. I got a buzz, 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 grind, grind, grind t-shirt designed. It's wonderful. Can I bring it up real quick here? Nah. Just made a post with a few pics. Great. So go check that out on the ADRAMADA web Discord server. I'll repost the link. Did I copy paste or can I still do that? Hey, there's the link again. Okay. Joey Quetzal's here. Hey, made it before the end of the show this time. Good to see you, Joey. Hey, you have been really helpful on the company Discord server lately. Yeah. I definitely remember you were talking about somebody and work and finding work and the particular work that you do and have done. So thanks very much for that. Okay, I admit it. When he said, when the sun goes down and started to sing this song, I got about 14 of them just running through my head. When the lights go down. Okay. I posted a response on Reddit a week ago to somebody. Look, I am, for the most part, Captain Nice Guy, Captain Helpful, but sometimes somebody will just say something so abusive that I cannot help myself. And I posted a response to them that was just dripping with disdain and sarcasm and invective. And another Redditor posted a message that he couldn't tell if I was being mean or nice. And I never gave him the answer to that. Interpret it for yourself. I used words that made it sound nice, right? Tact, the art of calling somebody a butthead while they think they're being complimented. Well, that got me to thinking about things, and I did send him a response, and what I sent to him was a message that said, that's the problem. Everybody knows this because we're all texters now with textual communications. It provides no intonation, no vocalization, no facial expressions, no body language. People have to filter the words that they read through their own experience and ascribe meaning to them. So two different people can interpret the same information in two very, very different ways. We all know this. This is common sense. And sometimes that interpretation is completely at odds with what the author intended. I wound up in a meeting in the office not long ago for what somebody claimed was my misinterpretation of a text message and my bad response to it. Okay. I have to take that at face value. Anyways, so it dawned on me that written language, for all of its failings, is particularly fail-oriented because of how much texting and short communication that we do these days. And it struck me that there should be a new level of punctuation, which in my first thought process, I called meta-punctuation. And I thought about it, and I went and looked it up. Has anybody come up with meta-punctuation yet? And there's a book out there called Meta-Punctuation When a Comma Isn't Enough. But it really doesn't go down much of the road that I'm thinking. And so, I'm not going to do this. I don't have the time. But wow, wouldn't that be great if there was a second set of punctuation built around words that would provide inflection clues. Excuse me. Trying to get this thing clear. And intonation clues and, maybe even flat out explanations, but in a nice sarcasm. And some of that stuff exists in some areas. If you do a /s on some forums, that's supposed to indicate that the preceding content is sarcasm. So what do you think? I made some notes. I made an initial outline on what would have to be done in order to create a meta-punctuation system like that. I'm suddenly besieged with thoughts of Victor Borgia doing the sound effects punctuation. That didn't dawn on me until now. So, okay. That's enough of that nonsense. Let's check messages one more time, and then let's talk about Linux from scratch. I don't have a lot to talk about. I've kind of laid out everything that I want to at the beginning of this. Let me see over here. What I miss. Yeah, say it ain't so on the internet. As per my last message, is something you never want to see on a text or email. Exactly right. Hi, I'm Scott, and I'm really happy to chat with you. Not bad. I think the words, as long as they don't have an indicator of sarcasm, those words pretty well speak to themselves, for themselves. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Linux from scratch. So if you're going to take a trip down the road with me on this, I'm going to build a Linux from scratch. I'm going to document it. I'm going to create a step-by-step document. I'm going to video the process, and it's going to be recorded, and you can follow along. The trick is start by reading the book. Now, Scott posted the link for the site. I'm going to post a link for that same site right now. And the book is totally online. I don't know if you ever could buy it. I'm sure you could have bought it back in the day when Gerard wrote it initially. And by the way, I have invited him to come on, but he's pretty much stepped back. He's turned over. He co-produces the site and things like that. But basically, the day-to-days have been handed off to a guy named Bruce Dubbs. But anyways, start by reading the book. It's not a long book. It's about 90 pages. And the book is step by step. So when you start reading this, you're going to get into things that, well, I'm not learning anything. I'm just learning a step. It's okay. From what I've started to read so far, read through everything. It kind of lays out some important concepts. And one of these really important concepts is that things have to be done in a very particular order because they are circular in their dependency requirements. And what that means is I have a package that I want to install. Maybe it's bash. Okay, that's one of the really important early on things that you've got to install in building here. Bash won't work when you install it because it needs certain dependencies. Now, usually dependencies are things that you install before you install a package that needs them. But when you're creating Linux, that can be a little bit reversed. So here I got my friend Bash. I'm going to install that. It's not going to work because now I'm going to install another set of programs, and it will have dependencies that Bash needs. And by the way, Bash will have dependencies that this thing needs. So that's what we mean by circular dependencies. So read through the entire 90-page book, just 10 pages a day for 9 days. It's going to be overwhelming unless you live in those lofty developmental worlds. But after you've gone through it one time, now we can start getting our resources and plans together and start building. And I will give you this that I've learned from it a great deal. This works best if you are doing your development on a Linux box. In fact, all the instructions are written to that. Even if you're going to do it in a VM, that's fine. But that's the way everything is written. Now, the book gets updated pretty regularly. They're on version, they call it version instead of edition, 12.1. And they're going to release 12.2 fairly quickly. And so, here, I'll tell you what, I'm going to, if you go to that link, go to the news sublink. And that will show you how to read the book online or how to download the book. And the download formats are everything from PDFs to XMLs to 22222. So if you want to follow along with me on this, I'm going to start it in about a week or so. And it would be good for you to kind of get some of that under your belt. And if not, you don't have to. Just follow along what I do in the step-by-step. But this is a great way to learn not how to use Linux, but how Linux works. And you know me, I'm a believer that Linux is a really important thing. For technicians, for users, for administrators, this is a large part of our future. Challenges that we're going to encounter. Number one, there are makes and compiles that you have to do along the way. They take a long time. started at bedtime and it might be ready by bedtime the next day. Now you can, if you really want to learn the maximum amount, do that. Have a little patience. It's okay. But if you don't, there are scripts written and available, easy downloads, to handle some of these processes that we have to do manually if we're truly creating from scratch. And that will save you a lot of time, but it'll cost you some learning. This is really important. If you miss something back here, you'll be able to continue here and here and here and here and here. But sooner or later, this is going to show itself and you can't continue. And you can't fix it here. You have to start over where you missed it, put in the thing that you've missed, and do it all again. And everybody does. It's a mistake we're all going to make. I'm going to make this one, so be it. On that main page, you're going to see links about 3 different, it looks like products. LFS, Linux from scratch. This creates a basic, fundamental Linux distribution. This isn't just about learning. This is about creating the perfect distribution that meets your exact needs. So that's what LFS does. Along the way, you're going to say, I want this shell. I'm only ever going to use the bash shell. I don't want the fish shell, and I don't want the Z shell, and I don't want the C shell. I want bash, and that's it. And it makes me a nice, efficient system. Cool. But you can't change your mind later and say, oh man, I wish I put the fish shell in. We're going to have to do that back at the beginning. Then there's BLFS, Beyond Linux from Scratch. That provides after the creation set of tools and utilities. And then there's ALFS for, I don't want to do any of this manual stuff. I don't have the time. I just want to do this, hit the scripts, pick some selection and go. And in a few days, it'll all be built and compiled and whatever. Okay, so automated LFS. That's it. Hey guys, I know it was a weird show tonight. Bad voice, bad brain. There's so much to do. But, you know, that's the way it always goes. Hey, we got a 3-day weekend coming up here in the States. Monday is a national holiday in the U.S. I will be off. That's work stuff. I don't want to talk about work stuff. So let's follow up on any final conversation. Hey, look at that. We survived the entire show. So maybe cranking back down that bit rate was a help, and maybe starting it a little later. So we'll call this one success. We'll see what happens again next week, right? You like the show. Good for you. Thanks, man. It was just me yammering. This was the, oh, hey, here's something fun. It's work related, but that's okay. I'm not going to cross a line here. Some of you may recall that a couple of months ago, I created some YouTube shorts on the company channel. I took a laptop motherboard, I mounted it on a platform, and then I showed how to install and remove certain pieces of equipment. That was a side project. It was actually not supposed to be the project that I was working on, but I had the resources to do it. And I wanted to experiment with it. Well, this past week, I finally got around to doing the project that I was supposed to do. Same kind of thing, except it's a desktop motherboard. The production value sucks. My wardrobe sucked. The only thing good about it was the camera work and some very creative editing that you can't tell. But I've made, I think, half a dozen more shorts. You can go to my company's YouTube site and just go to the shorts link, and you'll see them all there. You can laugh at them. You can say horrible comments. Some of them are truly deserving of that. But it was a lot of fun, and you will see me on the company Discord server talking about those with the idea that we would like people to participate, make your own shorts, and we will happily host them, or you can host them yourselves. And this is going to be kind of some cool stuff. All right, what do we got here to finish up? Yeah, they've been popping up randomly for me today. You like them? Okay, great. Yeah, if you're a follower of any YouTube site, whenever they do anything new, you'll get pop-up news and things like that, and you'll see them in your feeds. Makes it more realistic doing stuff on the fly. Yeah, the rules of shorts are 15-second minimum and 60 seconds maximum. And there was a couple projects that I had to break up. Installing a CPU, you cannot do in 60 seconds if you also include the heatsink fan assembly. So we broke that one up. You get the idea. Hey, well, let's wind this thing up. Oh, not too bad, timing-wise. I wish you a great rest of the weekend. I wish those of you in the States a wonderful long weekend. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy. And if at all possible, call or visit your parents. And of course, never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, good night. I'll see you on ADRAMADA next Thursday and the other platforms that I'm on. Until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. Eep, op, ork, ah, ah, huzzah!